Any good stories from the road?
Pipe up.
I wish we'd gotten to see a little bit more out of our punter.
I'm starting to puke.
It makes my stomach hurt.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to die.
I'm starting to throw up in my mouth a little bit.
He's on the probiotics.
Is Georgia playing the 1985 Bears this weekend or what?
A lot of Todd talk.
Rat poison proof.
They're mongoose.
We will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. I can promise you that. The hunting that we do will be done from us going the other direction.
Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Georgia Show. Jake Rowe, welcome in. Jake Roos. Hope you guys are having a wonderful International Women's Day. Who is your favorite international woman?
Good question.
I'd probably go with
Rihanna's a good international woman, I think.
Amelia. Is Amelia Earhart?
She's domestic.
Well, she tried. She gave it her best shot. Welcome in all seriousness.
Sofia Vergara.
Yeah, she is international for sure. Happy International Women's Day to my wife, who just put Band-Aids on all of the mole removal spots that I had from the dermatologist yesterday. She is, tell you, she's a superhero. Anyways, enough about all that. I won't show you my scars. Guys, we're finally talking about Georgia spring football. And Jake Rowe, you had a pretty intriguing piece up today about Georgia's receiving talent coming aboard this spring and the game plan for Mike Bobo and company. I was just so excited to actually read guys' names that are on this year's team again. The combine is one thing. The draft prep is one thing. All the other stuff behind us is totally different. But actually seeing this team is amazing. And seeing Lab McConkey's name and Brock Bowers on the page, it did some good stuff for my soul.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing. As a sports writer, as a beat guy, as somebody who follows the team, you really want to kind of hit autopilot for a minute, right? That was a long season, and Georgia's done. You know, you get home from LA January 10th. Palmer and I basically, we got home January 11th. We basically flew all night to get home, and you're sitting there thinking, you're like, 2 months, and it's gonna be ready to roll again, and then everything that happened. I mean, what a terrible, awful, no good, very bad, month and a half there. And then, right there, you start to kind of get into autopilot mode. Once all of that's over, you start to get into some of these early enrollee profiles, some stuff that you've kind of written over and over again. You get to share some opinion. You get to share some, you get to kind of editorialize a little bit and talk about these guys and what you've heard and what you know about them. And then, bam, you're sitting here at spring break. Spring break at Georgia means spring practice is about to start. And you start writing about the storylines. And honestly, it's the first time in a long time I felt like we had more storylines than we had days of the week leading up. May even go into Monday. Normally, I just kind of go Monday through Friday, the week leading up, and that's it. But this year, we're focused more on kind of the 5 days and may have to go to a 6 just because there's so many storylines, and there was receivers are one of them. Let's get back to that in just a second, though. We've got the man.
We got a live pop in from Palmer Toms.
It looks like a fake background.
Really a green screen. I peer pressured Palmer to join the show. Palmer is at the SEC tournament in Nashville at Bridgestone Arena. Palmer, what's happening at the Stone?
Well, right now we've got Ole Miss and South Carolina playing. 2:31 left in the second half. 63-56 Ole Miss. Georgia and LSU in the game to follow. And we've got a really loud Ole Miss band going as well. I don't know if y'all can hear that. But, yeah, Georgia fighting for their life. It's win or go home for them every game the rest of this week. If they can win 5, they're in the NCAA tournament. If they lose any of those leading up to that point, they're probably not playing any postseason basketball.
Yeah, it started out pretty promising for Mike White's team. I'll let you go after this one, Palmer. I know you want to get locked into the game. You got to get settled in and kind of keep your tabs on what's happening on the court there. But Mike White views this tournament as well, you can't show that on the air, Palmer. So let's not get let's not get Greg Sankey to kick us off of YouTube. what was Mike White's perspective on starting this season over essentially as the Dogs get into the SEC tournament?
Yeah, he was excited about the opportunity to come here and have a fresh start. Weirder things have happened. Anybody's got a chance. 0-0, all the cliches, bring them out for the Bulldogs because they are using them all. They know that they haven't played their best basketball of late, losing 5 in a row, league high coming into this tournament. And, they're the 11th seed. They're the better seeded team. They beat LSU earlier this year. About a month ago today, it was actually their last win, but they're the underdogs tonight. So, I think there's an understanding that things have not gone great as of late, but that they have played good basketball. And if you look at it, I mean, they play – I'm not saying this is going to happen, but they play LSU. They beat LSU. They play Vanderbilt if they win that game. They probably should have beaten Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt shot 50% against them. And then they play Kentucky, who they split the season series with, and won the last time against them. So it's a favorable draw for a team that's losing 5 in a row.
Look, we're going to chop wood about it, or at least I am, when we wrap up the show here. Palmer, there's a young Tennessee fan behind you looking for a defense on football. So I wish him the best of luck back there as he looks around the arena. Palmer, thank you, man. Best of luck. Follow Palmer Toms on Twitter for live updates from the game, and also join us for more in-depth analysis on the board over at DawgsHQ.com with a premium membership. You don't want to miss out on that, $29.99 through August 31st. All right, so Georgia.
What if Greg Sankey had walked up behind Palmer after he turned that thing on the floor and just kind of shut him off, like with the little neck grab there?
Wait, he's back.
What?
He's back.
I thought I pressed the button. What happened?
So
Greg Sankey got him.
Greg Sankey's supposed to be in the seat right in front of me.
Turn
All
the
right,
camera
well,
around.
take a picture of the back of his head and send it in or put it on Twitter, and we'll live stream it tonight.
He's not there.
Ask for comment.
Hey, see if you can get him on Bark in the Dark. Bark After Dark, sorry.
You don't even know the name of your own show. All right, we go.
All right,
Always
Georgia
fun.
tips off at 9:30 p.m. If you're listening to this on a replay, you already know what happened. Georgia won the game. All right, Georgia lost to LSU.
That'd be
All
the
right,
that's the expected outcome, buddy.
Anything can happen.
You said
Yeah.
both, though, and now everybody's getting what they need.
All right, let's get back to the
pick back
original
up.
programming.
Back to the football talk. The receiving
stop
picture
watching
for
this.
Georgia is starting to take shape this spring, Ro.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what I was kind of, my long-winded way of getting to it was, I started thinking about the storylines for this spring. You got a quarterback competition. You got, reloading in the secondary. We've done both of those. Today was the receivers' turn. And listen, man, I don't think enough was made and didn't have enough time to really do it because of everything that went on. But of Georgia's addition to Dominic Lovett, I've heard quite a bit now to this point that, this guy is, he's the real deal. And Georgia fans saw it up close. They saw Dominic Lovett kind of carve him up for a couple of quarters there in Columbia, Missouri. He had some big games this year. He was one of the best receivers in the SEC. I think folks are going to be really satisfied with him. I think Ra Thomas is a big addition, and he's cleared his legal hurdles. I don't know the situation. I'm not going to sit here and comment on it and act like Georgia's doing the right or wrong thing. I think they've investigated it. They've booted guys. Jake Roos is way up in my face right now. I mean, you're so close to that camera.
I was looking for something over in my mail slot and didn't realize we'd gone back to the 3-person look.
Jake Roos streaming his broadcast from a
also,
spy balloon.
This head's tough to keep in the frame, buddy.
Yeah, I could. I saw a tonsil, but it. Ra Thomas is a good addition. I like the 3 freshmen. I like the boxes that they check off there. I mean, they've got a big physical guy that runs probably better than you realize. There in Tyler Williams, they've got Anthony Evans, who he's a blur, and then they got a kind of an all around dude there in Yazid Haynes, and we've kind of gotten to all of those guys that I've mentioned at one point or another through some story. And Georgia's wide receiver position is primed in a really good spot, despite losing A.D. Mitchell and despite losing Kearis Jackson.
I'm probably more excited about Georgia's wide receiver class in 2023 than I have been about one in a long time. I think that there's a lot of potential in that group. I've made no secret of it. If you've followed this channel, if you've followed these shows, I think Tyler Williams is real deal Holyfield, man. I think he's a dude that can be a dude at the next level. Yazid is one of those dudes who kind of flew under the radar for a long time. And then, like you said, with Evans, it's just all about speed. I mean, he's a guy who brings that element to it. And
Yazid's got plenty of it too.
Oh, no question. Absolutely. I mean, Yazid, from a pure athleticism standpoint, his measurables check off. I mean, his broad jump was huge. I think he had a really nice vert, if I'm not mistaken, at Penn State camp last year. Tyler Williams, though, I think the guy with the big ceiling, because he's not been playing football for more than 2 or 3 years. He was a long-time basketball guy. I thought that was his future. And you see some of that translate over, I think, when you watch his tape. So I really, really love that freshman class for Georgia. I think that there's a lot of upside in these guys. This isn't – listen, Ladd McConkey has turned out to be an outstanding player, but it's not like they were taking these late fine guys. They identified some really big-time guys. And, Yazid was one of those guys that they took, and then everything sort of skyrocketed for him in his senior year. I think like 1,700 yards or something like that. Some real potential in this group.
We will definitely devote more time to this topic on a later episode because I think it's worthy of its own block or two. But with Georgia having a new quarterback and a new offensive coordinator, when you look back at Alabama, because Bama's the standard, they've only had a couple seasons where they've replaced an OC and a quarterback and still gone on to appear or win a national championship. That's kind of the X factor for me. That's the other side of this sword, of this double-edged blade for Georgia's receiving core and its quarterback position is, how do you get that many guys in sync with the quarterback and understanding what Mike Bobo wants to do on offense in one offseason? That, to me, will potentially make or break Georgia's success on offense, how well all of those individuals and those units handle that transition.
I think the number one thing there is you maintain a level of continuity. I'm not, listen, I've said this all along. I think the offense is going to stay similar. I don't think it's going to be the exact same. I think it's going to stay similar. And I think the terminology is definitely going to pretty much stay the same. And I think that really helps the learning curve there. I think the Bobo thing is a little bit of a non-factor as compared to the new quarterback. Because listen, I had somebody bring it up to me the other day. Bring it up to me yesterday. Todd Monken is in Baltimore, and that's not looking like the greatest decision right now because Lamar Jackson's situation is going on. My God, at the stir that has caused. I don't want to get too deep into it, but there's only one franchise giving fully guaranteed contracts to quarterbacks, and that's one of the worst there is. So sorry, Roos. I know that you root for a couple of doozies, buddy, in the Browns and the Falcons, but that's looking like an all-time screw up there. What they did for Deshaun Watson, and he wants.
Come on now, it's not like the Broncos are looking genius for Russell Wilson either. Bro.
Hey man, Super Bowls, kiss the ring.
I need to find a team. The Falcons and I are on a break.
Yeah, I'd go on break with the Falcons all the time, see other people. But yeah, but still, Todd Monken. Okay, so why did he make the move? Well, he doesn't want to recruit. Could part of it have been the quarterback situation? I don't think so, man, because Carson Beck looked so much better last year when we saw him late in games. And it means something because he didn't look that good the year before. It showed improvement. So I think the quarterback thing is a little bit more of an issue than anything else. Also simply because Georgia can't really settle in on a guy. They can't. They would love to. They would love for like Gunnar Stockton or Carson Beck or Brock Vandegrift to come out this spring and be like, this is my job. You cannot deny me, and do that with their play. They're going to have to deny him. They're going to have to be like, hey, we got to take this in. Oh man, this is going to last into camp. This thing's going to last into the season because they really need to keep all three guys around.
My theory throughout this, and with the addition of the 2 transfer guys, I mean, obviously they're tremendous players, and I think they would have done it in any regard. But my theory has been that they're just trying to ease the curve for whoever's coming in. You give them as many good weapons as you can, and figure it out from there.
Give them as many weapons and give them as much time. I mean, there is the transfer portal factor that helps, but why not see how long you can go on this thing and let your guy have all the time he needs to figure it out, but also just have a competition that gets heated and builds up more until the fall.
I don't know. I was trying to do it for the mirror. It looks like PI.
Is there a pass interference on the play?
Listen, hold on. Here we go.
19. There you go.
19. Yeah.
That's all that matters. Brock Bowers. I still to this day contend that Stetson Bennett and Todd Monken at Georgia were built by Brock Bowers. I'm the biggest Brock Bowers stan there is. I think he changes things in such a way that you can't even imagine. You know, when you talk with other coaches and they're like, man, you don't know how hard it is when a team lines up in 2 tight end and you have to play them as if they're in 3 or 4 different personnel sets because of what that guy can do. There he is, the man. And I'll tell you what, Georgia wins a 3rd straight national title. He goes over 1,000 yards. The greatest Bulldog ever in my mind will be Brock Bowers. And he can cement that by coming back for his senior year, but I think he'll probably be about as old as –
yeah, he should really do that, I think.
He should do it. He should do it because funny thing, you may not know this about Brock Bowers. He's a little bit of an old man. Like if Brock Bowers stuck around Georgia 6 years like Stetson Bennett did, I think Brock Bowers might be 30.
He's a time traveler, man.
He is. He's something special, and I think that's the he's like I put in the story today, that he is the straw that stirs the drink. He's going to be that way, and that's the way it's going to be.
That's been your go-to phrase lately, just so you're.
Oh, it just is a little Reggie Jackson action, dude.
Uncle Glenn Hartley says, "Powered by Bowers." That's
right.
A good catchphrase. This show and its apparel is powered by Breaking Tea. We invite you to check out the fine selection, not just Brock Bowers' mug there, but Stetson Bennett, all the national championship attire that you desire. I didn't even mean to make that rhyme, but they have T-shirts and hoodies and sweatshirts and mugs to drink hot beverages out of them. Maybe something a little stronger. Go check out Breaking Tea. The link is always in the episode description. All right, Jake Roos, you mentioned the freshmen in general. Palmer Toms, I wanted to give him a shout out as he is sitting courtside with Greg Sankey at the SEC tournament. The list of freshmen to watch, and these are guys, Jake Roos, that you were just covering pretty heavily not too long ago. So let's just go through them really quick and get y'all's thoughts on them, because I'm excited about at least a couple of them. And your guy made the list, Jake Roos. We'll start with Tyler Williams. To me, I know Ra Thomas has more experience in college, but Tyler and Ra kind of have that similar frame. I know Tyler could probably put on a little bit more muscle to catch up to Ra, but you got some big bodies there that Georgia hasn't really had in the receiving game outside of maybe Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint for the past couple seasons now, because Pickens was out for most of 2021.
Yeah, AD was a taller guy, but he wasn't exactly thick.
Kind of lanky.
He was lanky for sure. Tyler's a little bit more, like I said, I think that basketball background, he's sort of built like a high school power forward, if you will. So yeah, I think Tyler Williams, sky's the limit kind of thing for him. It's really for him, his best football's ahead, I think. He hasn't been playing for a long time. Not a guy that, is sort of topped out in his ceiling. Played at a tremendous high school program down there at Lakeland. They're outstanding, the Dreadnoughts.
Yeah, that place is
it's a
powerhouse, huh?
It's a factory, man. And, I think that's a huge benefit for Tyler Williams. He was playing against great competition down there, and he's a guy who, really kind of throughout this process knew what he wanted to do, was really kind of hard focused on the Bulldogs throughout it. Loved Brian McClendon, loved his vision. Another one of those guys that, Georgia, even that quick stop that he had in Miami, I think benefited Georgia with Brian McClendon getting to know Tyler Williams a little bit and touching base with him. So, Brian
McClendon was just like a Georgia operative at Miami.
He put in like a month, and he got in touch with like tons of kids, man. It was crazy. I mean, seriously, that happened. There were a lot of kids I spoke to once he arrived to Georgia that were like, "Oh yeah, I knew him from visiting Miami in January," and like what a kick in the nuts to Mario Cristobal. I mean, just a nightmare. I mean, they got the Michael Crabtree comparison over there. That's one hell of a comparison. Georgia fans better hope that he's as good as Michael Crabtree, because
that comparison is going to be tough to live up to.
Like I said, go watch the tape on Tyler Williams. That's really what convinced me so much on him, was seeing what he put on tape. I think he's just a guy who has so many special attributes to his game, and I think that he can flourish in this offense.
Two guys that you've been high on, Jake Rose, CJ Allen, and Jonel Aguero, also check in on Palmer's list. You've just heard from people at Georgia that have seen him play that those are two guys that are already making a name for themselves as early enrollees, and rolling into the spring. That can only be good things for both of those dudes in Athens.
I'll tell you what. I think I told this story on this show, and if I didn't, I told it on the board. But I wrote a story a couple months ago, and I mentioned instant impact freshmen, and I put Raylan Wilson in there, and I had somebody who would know shoot me a text with the link to that story, and it just said CJ Allen. And when somebody does that, they kind of reach out to you, and they're like, "Hey, I read your story. There's another guy that should have been in there." And CJ Allen was that guy. Now he's got a tough row to hoe here to get on the field, because Jawan Dumas-Johnson and Smile Munden, the scheme is second nature to them. And I think Smile Munden is bound for a tremendous football season. I mean, I believe he ended up being Georgia's leading tackler after missing basically a couple of games.
He was everywhere, man.
He was fantastic late in the season. I mean, down the stretch, he was probably Georgia's best defender. But with that said about CJ Allen, Jonel Aguero may be my favorite signee for Georgia in this class, simply because, man, I love the way he plays that safety position. I love how good of a wide receiver he was in this past year, this senior year in Massachusetts. I know that's not the strongest ball up there, but they get after it. And I tell you what, I like the way he's put together. He's a bigger, to me, version of Chris Smith, probably a bigger, faster version of Chris Smith, because I think they're very similar football players just in terms of body style. You hear some of the things about his maturity and his competitiveness. Jonel Aguero, Georgia would do really well to be able to pair him and Malachi Starks, a couple of experienced guys there, for as long as they can, and that may only be a year and a half. Because Michael's likely gone after 2024, and Jonel, maybe there's an opportunity for a junior and a sophomore to kind of go at it. And honestly, wouldn't shock me if we're looking back in 15, 20 years and we're talking about 2024 if both of those guys are healthy, and you're saying, hey, that's the best Georgia safety tandem I've ever seen.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm on board with you there. I think that, listen, like you said, is it the toughest ball you've ever seen up there in Massachusetts? It's not. But
he was really good at IMG too. So
yeah, absolutely, man. And listen, Lewis Seam came up in those same ranks that he did before transferring over to Texas and finishing his career. So, those guys play tough out there. They know how to get it done. And I think that those guys are, I think Aguero's one of those guys definitely to watch out for in this class. I thought the Jonathan Abram comparison.
Yeah, Georgia people know that name.
Pretty interesting. And then there was the other one they had. CJ Allen as Sean
Weatherspoon.
Which that's an interesting one.
That is an interesting one.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I hope so. To me, I'm not saying he is this guy, but
big Spoon fan.
But CJ Allen, to me, when you go turn on that tape, it reminds me a lot of what I saw out of Roquan Smith's tape in high school. He played running back.
Did everything.
He was a do everything guy at Lamar County. He was the running back. He was all over the field making tackles. He was dropping into coverage. He was coming into run support. He was affecting the quarterback. It just didn't really matter, man. And so he has that elite athleticism in the way that Roquan did. Will he be able to translate it over? I don't know. I mean, I'm not putting that on anybody, but he's definitely a tremendous, tremendous athlete.
Last two we'll wrap up here before we pick up the axe and chop some wood. Monroe Freeling, the best name of the 2023 signing class, and Damon Wilson. Monroe Freeling is my favorite early enrollee just because of his name and because he's huge. 6'7", 290 pounds, and all that competition on Georgia's O-line is going to be huge for him and will probably be slightly painful for him at times this upcoming season, but I think he also, from all the indications I've heard from you, Jake Rowe, and knowing what he did as a recruit, Jake Roos, he could end up messing around and getting some playing time this year.
I think that's possible. Sure. Listen, I'll tell you this: when offensive line coaches go to sleep at night, they dream of 6'8", 300-pound kids whose moms are yoga teachers. And that's what they got in Monroe Freeling. He is that big.
Dogs like some yoga now.
Listen, this kid, he's got the bend already, and that's what makes him so special. He blew people away at the Army All-American game, or the Adidas All-American game as it is now. But he was one of the standouts. I think the offensive line MVP of the week from everything I read. So I think Monroe. Listen, if there's a freshman O lineman who has a chance to break through and get some playing time, it's definitely Monroe Freeling.
Colts Mania over here in our comment section, just jacked for the Dogs. Monroe Freeling, welcome to Indy. CJ Allen, you are an Indianapolis Colt. They can't jump out just yet, Colts Mania.
Colts Mania, listen, Colts Mania, thank you so much for watching our show tonight. I appreciate it. I have no idea where your lot come from. I don't know what planet. I don't know if you and Tennessee Man are neighbors, and then it's just some kind of you guys live. I think you guys live under the same power line. I don't know.
They live in the same hole in the ground. They're in the darkness retreat that Aaron Rodgers was in.
Yeah, and then Damon Wilson, just by virtue of the position, right? I mean, I think that they're going to be searching for guys on the edge, and Damon, Jake, I know that you really love his ability or his strength as a power.
Yeah, I just love that power. It's like I was talking to. Funny enough, I was talking to Charles Power, at the Carrollton.
Speaking of great names,
I know, right? I've said this over and over again. I'm so jealous of that dude. He's got it all. He grew up in Myrtle Beach, for crying out loud. The only thing I got over him is he went to South Carolina, and I think he went to South Carolina, and I went to Georgia. Maybe he didn't go to South Carolina. Maybe he went to a better school than that. But anyway, we were talking about Damon Wilson. He goes, man, when you stand next to him, he's not the biggest guy. Like he's kind of long limbed and kind of a taller guy. Probably not much bigger than Nolan Smith, but in terms of height. But he is incredibly powerful. He's got a powerlifting background, and I'm telling you that and wrestling are a couple of things that just often translate to the next level. And I don't care where you play. I mean, if you play
Branson Robinson, for example.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter what position you play. If you're used to that kind of strain and physicality, and you've got that kind of a raw ability to overpower somebody, I mean, listen, it's a physical game. It's a strong man's game. It's a big man's game. And when you possess the strength to play bigger than you are, there's not a whole lot that can hold you down in the game if you also have kind of the prerequisite size, even if it's the bare minimum.
Palmer made a note of the depth for Shadera Uzo-Duribe, and it's not quite as deep as the wide receiver core that we mentioned earlier, but you want to talk about a turning of the tables from one season to the next when Georgia just couldn't keep its edge guys healthy. All of a sudden, those cupboards are looking pretty full of talent going into 2023. I tease chopping wood, but Jake Roos, we have a decommitment tonight that a lot of people are asking us about in the comments. We're not burying, or I guess we are kind of burying the lead on that, but we're not forgetting about that bit of news. So what's the latest on the decision from Mr. Mizell?
Well, before we get to Tovani Mizell's decommitment, and we will talk about it, I'm going to take a shot at Palmer for somebody he left off the list while he's not here.
Yeah.
Give him the business.
Why? And he can't defend himself.
Take it away.
Jordan Hall should be on that list. There's no question about it in my mind. I don't know how you missed Jordan Hall on that list. The Georgia took 2 defensive linemen in this class, Jamal Jarrett and Jordan Hall. Jamal Jarrett's probably not going to be ready in year 1. It's going to take him some time, I think, maybe to pick it up. Jordan Hall, I think, is built for it. I think he's ready and rocking and rolling in the way that Bear Alexander was this year. Big, fast, physical guy. So I think that's an omission on the part of young Palmer Thombs. Jake, I'm curious if you had anybody else that you think he should have included on there.
No, I think that's about it. I mean, I do like Hall a lot. I think Hall was probably a guy you put on there, but simply because of the number of guys that Georgia's going to play on that defensive front. If for nothing else, you might see Hall kind of get some third down snaps in that DPR role that Bear Alexander played last year, because Bear Alexander's probably going to be asked to play first and second down, maybe a little bit more than he was this past year. Georgia's got a lot of really good defensive linemen in the fold. I think they need a strong class in 2024, but I like that pick. I also tend to kind of overvalue, or maybe I don't overvalue, maybe I'll value it just right. Speed. And I think Anthony Evans is a guy, maybe as a gadget guy or some different things that may be able to help Georgia. Although, because I think he's a little different than the 2 other speed merchants they have in Arian Smith and CJ Smith, because those guys are more straight line guys that can just go. I think Evans has more twitch and more elusiveness maybe than those 2 do. A little bit more, a jitter, a hand on him in a foot. Yeah. Can't hit him with a handful of sand in a phone booth type dude.
The scouts for On 3 say that Hall reminds him of Nick Fairley. That's a guy that Georgia fans never want to be reminded of again.
Yeah.
Especially not Aaron Murray.
If he's that nasty, then that would,
Yes, if he's that nasty, get some revenge.
Listen, Nick Fairley may have took his shots there, Murray, whatever. Nick Fairley's still a bad man. He's still a very, there goes that man. And he's him.
Yeah. All right. So to dive in on recruiting a little bit here, decommitment tonight. Tovani Mizell opens things up. I will say, not a total surprise that he did this. I am surprised about the timing of this. I didn't know that it was going to happen this early, or think that it would happen this early, but I didn't have a great feeling about Tovani Mizell being in this class for the long term. And that's partially because Georgia had already accepted the commitment of a second back in Dwight Phillips. And then they're keeping the gas on for guys like Cam Davis and Chauncey Bowens, who are FSU and Florida commits respectively. So it wasn't like they were kind of pulling back from it. They were continuing to pursue other guys. Mizell took a tumble in the recent On 300 update. I think he's still a good player. He's still a 4-star guy, 6'1", 193. He's playing at a great school at DeMatha Catholic and was playing in Florida prior to that. But, this was not maybe a huge shocker. And I'll be honest, right now I think one of those 2 guys is probably my pick to be the second guy in this class. Cam Davis or Chauncey Bowens would kind of be the 2 guys I would point to. I've heard a lot of buzz about how much Georgia likes Chauncey Bowens. And boy, that would probably just rip the heart out of Billy Napier and the Gainesville staff. And probably nothing would excite Kirby Smart more than that. So he's a real dude, and I expect him to continue to climb the ranks. Like I said, not crazy to see Mizell out of this, but the timing a bit strange. But you got to think, listen, Georgia didn't really find their guy at running back last year. I mean, they pursued, obviously, Justice Haynes and Richard Young for the entirety of the cycle, but Roderick Robinson didn't even really come onto the radar, if I'm remembering correctly, until like May of last year. So the spring
he was late.
Yeah, the spring window is pretty key in terms of evaluations and finding other guys. But they've already got some really highly rated guys. Jarrett Gibson is going to OV to Georgia, the number 1 running back in the class. He's spent some time living in Georgia. Florida ties down there. Texas feels good about him right now, but Dogs aren't giving up. They're taking 2 in this class at a bare minimum. And it wouldn't shock me if there was a third, possibly, if they felt like they got the right 3 guys. They're going to keep pressing at that running back spot. I don't think that there's any doubt about that. And, Mizell was in, now he's out. Good luck to the guy. And we'll see if they loop back around on it. I'm not expecting that at this point. Elsewhere, we did some RPM picks today, right?
Yeah, you guys have a new model for the RPMs. What's going on over there?
Yeah, it was RPM Wednesday, which is a new holiday that On3 is celebrating some once in a while as of today. So we made some RPM
pancake
picks.
breakfast. We do it every Wednesday.
Yeah, we put.
Hey, listen, I've been told that if they really get it going and it catches some steam, it'll be better than Arbor Day.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody mentioned DeMarcus Riddick over in the comments, and I wrote about that on the board. There was a pick in today for Alabama. I've been told the Crimson Tide feel pretty good coming off of his visit, but I haven't heard that there's anything imminent there, and even from the Bama end, that's the case. So interesting to see how that ends up playing itself out. Alabama definitely gained some steam. Auburn's a school that he's been looking at pretty closely too.
Keep in mind on the RPM stuff with DeMarcus Riddick, you can't pick Georgia right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you absolutely can't. I remember the same thing happening with Terry Godwin back in the day when everybody was like, man, Jake, why haven't you put in a pick for Terry Godwin for Georgia? I'm like, dude, he's been committed to Georgia forever. I can't pick Georgia. Like, I'm not picking anybody because I can't pick Georgia. Calm down.
Right.
So just keep that in mind when you look at these RPM picks.
Yeah, and listen, DeMarcus Riddick said all the right things when he committed, and even when he committed, listen, the kid's from Alabama. I mean, at the end of the day, those guys are not easy to get out of that state. If Auburn and Alabama want them, look. So, okay, hold on, wait, scroll down just a little bit there, Wes. No, scroll down back to the stories.
Right
new RPM pick for Alabama to flip SEC commit. Auburn Tigers major threat to flip 4-star Georgia LB.
Yeah.
What do you want, man? I mean, they both think it's going to happen. So, I think Georgia has a great shot with DeMarcus Riddick. He grew up a Georgia fan. Family loves it. The ties are strong in Alabama, though, clearly. And everybody's feeling themselves right now, as you can tell from what's going on there. So, and he's going on. He has been to Auburn a couple of times, so definitely a team to watch for him for sure. So anyway, that's going to be one to watch. I'll say that.
I suspect that if Georgia holds on to Glenn Schumann for another season, if Glenn Schumann is Georgia's linebackers coach when DeMarcus Riddick puts pen to paper, that Georgia's going to get him, because Glenn Schumann doesn't lose them, man. He just doesn't lose them. He goes and gets the big timers and he keeps them. Georgia's recruited Alabama fairly well. Even when they got 1 and 2 from the state of Alabama a few years ago, 2019. They got Pickens, they got Clay Webb. Obviously, those two worked out much differently. But they were number 1 and 2 in Alabama. And I've always said, listen, it doesn't matter. There's a difference between recruiting evaluations and your recruiting acumen. And Georgia's got plenty of recruiting acumen. They don't always hit on the evaluations. Nobody does. But when you go into Alabama and get the number 1 and the number 2 player out of there, you've done something.
Yeah.
Speaking of flipping potentially a guy from Florida, kind of made me wonder, what do you think is the most satisfying flip that Georgia has benefited from a rival?
In history?
I was trying to think, I guess like in recent memory, I was trying to think back about a player that Georgia might have flipped from Florida, but I couldn't remember one.
Marcus Stroud. That was a good one.
Well, I knew Stroud.
That was the cover of Sports Illustrated.
It's been a minute ago.
God, I remember that. That was
Go check out the Road to Georgia, Improbable Twists and Incredible Turns on the Bulldogs recruiting trail for more information on the Marcus Stroud decommitment.
I didn't. Where is that? I haven't heard of this.
That's the book I wrote.
I didn't know that. I didn't get a signed copy. So I don't know.
Appreciate
Luke's going to be signing copies up at the bookstore tonight at 1 a.m. if you want to head up there.
Devod Wilson wasn't a flip. It didn't really work out, but Devod Wilson was a one-time Florida commit. And then
y'all think about it and put it in the comments. I put Roe and Roos on the spot here, but just a little food for thought. What is the best flip from a rival that Georgia benefited from? There have been some painful ones that really kicked Georgia in the teeth. Derek Brown was a tough one. I don't even know.
That wasn't a flip.
Auburn, it wasn't even really a flip.
Yeah, Georgia led for a long time, and I don't think there was ever really a commitment imminent. But I think once Mark Richt was a big deal to that family. And, Auburn had kind of, I think once the Richt rumors started to really kick up that he was going to get fired, I think Georgia lost a lot of steam with him in a short amount of time. And that was
Uncle Glenn says Pickens.
Pickens is a big one. Georgia flipped him from Bama at the last minute.
Was it Auburn?
No,
right?
Auburn. He
was Auburn. You're right. For some reason, I was thinking Alabama. Yeah, it was Auburn.
Yeah, that's right.
Matthew C says Justin Fields from Penn State. Yeah, that was
he and Jaden Hazelwood were like number 1 and number 2 in that class, as best I remember. And Hazelwood was committed to Georgia at one point, and then decommitted, and then I remember the Pickens commitment. Like I got word that was going down like about 5 minutes before it happened.
Too.
And I just started scrambling. And
I was in a Kroger parking lot.
Nobody. That was not on. That was not on anybody's radar.
Yeah,
that was going to happen. And it was almost like that classic Jeb Bush campaign thing where when he committed to Georgia and they were in that place, they were like, it was almost like, please clap. There was nobody thought.
Yes, you could definitely pick that up, even watching it on the stream.
Jake Fromm's a good one over there. Jake Fromm's a good one. Quay Walker, another good one. That was also a direct flip. Justin Fields technically wasn't a direct flip because he was committed to Penn State, decommitted, stayed decommitted for a couple of months before Jake Roos witnessed it from a bush.
I was in Germany when he committed.
A pretty good one recently. Not a rival flip, but Mike Hill was big. Was a big impact.
But I think all things considered, think about Quay Walker, Alabama. You think about Quay Walker being a first-round pick. I mean, I think that's a good one. LSU. Yep. I mean, Monty Rice is another one, even though LSU's not a big.
That was another late one too, man. That was like an 11th hour one for sure.
That was after that was before the early signing period.
But he was
an early enrollee.
Was that not the same class that Riley Ridley was in, and he just showed up to?
No, that was the next class. Riley Ridley was in Kirby's first class.
That was like the first two. That was like God. That was back to back. That was so tough.
I don't think Aziz was a flip from LSU. He committed.
He was never committed to
Georgia. Did believe. I do believe. Never mind. We're not. We don't need to be talking much about Adam Anderson.
All right.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, y'all keep discussing that. Maybe we take some more time to wrap our thoughts around that and have an answer further back from Kirby's classes that were even worse or even more impactful for the Dogs. I'm going to chop wood tonight, guys, on our Chopping Wood Wednesday.
Hey, by the way, Georgia did flip Stetson Bennett, I believe, from Louisiana
Lafayette.
Yeah, so that's a good one.
All right. By the time many of you listen to this or watch this, Georgia may have lost to LSU in the SEC tournament. I'm going to say that they won. Just going to put those good vibes for the Dogs out there. But 15 years ago, Georgia proved how great March Madness can be when they earned their ticket to the NCAA tournament by winning the SEC tournament in Georgia Tech's home stadium because of the crazy tornado, that forced the tourney to move from the Georgia Dome to Georgia Tech's campus. And I remember watching that. That was a really weird spring and summer for Georgia sports because they also lost the College World Series to Fresno State that year. So some highs and lows from the Dogs in that 2008 spring. But I just wanted to shout out that team that did that and extended Dennis Felton's career for a few more months. That was fun. Let's have more Georgia basketball moments like that, hopefully with better teams down the road. But that was fun to look back on and reminisce about today.
100%. I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember the 2 games in one day that they had to play, which was a basketball doubleheader. What are you talking about? That's crazy.
One of them was Kentucky.
Let's dial it back on this whole can't play 3 nights in a row in the NBA. I saw a team win an SEC tournament playing 2 games in one day. You'll live, you'll make it. It'll be okay. Anthony Edwards does it. Anthony Edwards does it because he's a dog. Listen, I'm going to go back to Roos. I don't know what year it was. I think it's still considered prime country days. Lone Star's breakout hit. No news. Okay. Tell a phone, tell a friend, tell a lie about where you've been. Okay. Georgia's rooting for no news coming off spring break. Always and forever. Georgia's on spring break. They need no news. I'm chopping wood on that because they don't need any pot brownies to rise up and strike a safety. They don't need anything. They need to drive their cars the speed limit or 5 over at most. Let's don't run the car out of brake fluid or anything like that. Safety, everything. Listen, you got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and they'll report back on Sunday, I assume, as a team. You got 3 more days of no news. Keep it that way because this team, this fan base, everybody who bleeds red and black needs no news over the next 3 days.
It's a great song reference.
Yeah, I heard it the other day, and I didn't realize I remembered every damn word. So
that one of Lone Star's best hits.
Send a fax.
Yeah, send a pigeon, send a fax.
Send a signal up in smoke. Tap it out in Morse code.
I prefer a bad excuse.
Yeah, so I'm going to chop wood on actually what we were just talking about, which is that Georgia has a chance this year to have the guy be the most impactful flip that they've ever had. And that's one that I had almost forgotten about. And I started looking through all the commitments and decommitments and that kind of thing. Carson Beck, many people may not remember, was an Alabama commit and opened his recruitment up very briefly. Florida came in, and Florida felt like they got duped, and then Georgia ended up being the winner in that race. If Carson Beck can be the guy that everybody believes that he can, I think that that's going to end up being the biggest flip of Kirby Smart's career so far. If he's able to come back, come out, continue what they've been doing, and at the level that they've been doing it, take this Georgia team back to where many people hope that they can get, Carson Beck has a chance to be that guy. So we were just talking about impactful flips. Carson Beck can be the most impactful flip of the Kirby Smart era.
Good stuff. That brings the show full circle. Appreciate Palmer hopping in. The SEC tournament is about to begin. We don't want to compete with that. So thank you for subscribing and liking and commenting here on the Georgia Show on DawgsHQ. Guys, Bark After Dark was a hit with Andy Staples. If you missed that convo, tune into that. Bark After Dark every Monday at 9 p.m. And the Georgia Show, which you just watched, every Wednesday and Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Jakes, great job, guys. Thanks as always.